Yo, what is going on, guys? With more, bringing guys a brand new Busch Gardens video, and I want to do these videos semi-weekly, maybe weekly. You know, mix that in with vlogs at Busch Gardens and stuff. Because for those of you who don't know, I'm actually pretty decently local to Busch Gardens, so I go there a lot. And so I love to keep vlogging there with new ideas and maybe do some different types of videos instead of just a vlog, maybe Easter eggs or secrets that I know about the park and maybe you don't know. So, like I said, this Busch Gardens brand part of the channel is something that's always been around and something I want to keep building. I love being a channel that has a variety of different types of videos. So, if you're a part of the Busch Gardens community, or you're not yet and you want to be, make sure to subscribe. Let's get going. And I swear, there's going to be videos that I make about Busch Gardens where I'm not complaining or talking about how they can improve, where I can just talk about what I love about them, because I genuinely love the park with my whole heart. There's just some things I've been wanting to get off my chest, and some things I talk about in my vlogs that I just want to expand upon in a longer, different type of format than just the vlogs. So, what we're going to talk about today. Am I going to talk about Dark Castle? No. For once, I'm not going to talk about Dark Castle in this video. You know, I'm wearing a Dark Castle shirt. The topic for this video I could talk about with Dark Castle, but I'm actually going to say that for a whole different video. We're really going to kind of dive into the theories of why Dark Castle closed. But this video, I want to talk about in-ride effects currently at Busch Gardens that are just not working. Upon my last trip to Busch Gardens, if you noticed in my vlog, I mentioned several times that Bolton's effects were not working. Escape from Pompeii's effects weren't working. And I just have a couple of qualms that I want to just talk about when it comes to Loch Ness Monster and Dark Coaster. So let's start with the most egregious one at the moment, and that is for Bolton. For Bolton is a lot of people's favorite coaster in the park. It's a great family coaster. I love the coaster. You never have a bad ride. Even when the on-ride effects aren't working, it's still a fantastic ride because you're driving through the Black Forest, and when the on-ride effects aren't working, you know what you see? Darkness. Now, to their credit, they have fixed one thing. They fixed the broken bridge. Weird sentence, right? They fixed it for the most part. It still looks a little wonky if you know what it used to look like and what it looks like now. I don't know if they're done or what they did is temporary or what they did is how it's going to be. I mean, I'm fine with it if that's how it is. I'm just glad they fixed it because it was such a square for so long after it collapsed during the storm. But when I rode it this past week, and if you watch vlogs on YouTube or you see any threads on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, you'll notice this. The on-ride effects just aren't working, and that's was kind of the whole shtick around for Bolton was this inside-outside coaster where you had the inside where you had three different settings, the wolves, the witch, and the storm. The last time I went, there was no sound effects. The only sound effects was thunder. Not like the storm thunder. It was just thundering throughout the building. And the only lights that I saw was when you go through the first drop, the purple and green, there was just a slight purple hue, and that was it. And I was greatly disappointed, and someone was riding beside me, and I looked at him, he said, that was such a fun ride. I'm like, it was fun, but they got to fix that on-ride effect. And as a stranger, so, I mean, I don't know how much he knows about for Bolton, but that, I had to air it out because it looked rough. And I love the on-ride effects, and there's been a steady decline over the past couple of years. I blamed a lot of it because it kind of started around the same time the pandemic hit a few years ago. And you're going to see me tie a lot to that in this video, with the budgeting and all that. But also, here's the thing about Bolton. Because it's an indoor-outdoor coaster, and because it's newer than a lot of the other coasters in the park, it just turned 11 this year, it can run year-round. The park loves to keep the rides that can run year-round open. So for Bolton, doesn't actually get an off-season. They might shut it down for a day, maybe a week at most to do a little bit of maintenance, but they really don't just shut it down, let it have an off-season where you would get a lot of these fine-tuning. But I swear, and I said this in the vlog, I think there needs to be the winter, not Christmas Town, because everyone loves it at Christmas Town, but January through March, because Busch Gardens Williamsburg is now a year-round park, if you don't know. They used to not be, but during the pandemic, they started having these events in the winter, and then they decided, you know what, let's just have the whole park open year-round, which I think was a fantastic idea. Do not think they should ever walk back on that because they've been so innovative and so creative with their ideas, but they need to shut for Bolton down for a couple months, get in there, fix the effects. It's not, at least in my eyes, the sensors for the effects are fine. I think it's the lighting and maybe the computer system that maybe just needs to get updated. So I could go on and on and on about for Bolton, but when the ride when the ride's niche is the effects and the inside and the three different stories that you're told, and you ride it and you get none of it, you still get a cool experience. But like usually even when the ride effects weren't working, the screen right before the drop track, you would see it. I didn't even see that. It just dropped. There was not even the sound where like the screen. It wasn't that. The floor just dropped, and I went, Okay, which honestly worked better for the scare because I know it's coming. So when I was in there, I'm like, I know it's coming, but honestly, I don't know when it's going to happen. So it actually caught me off guard when it happened because there was nothing like preparing me for it. But I could go on and on and on about Bolton. So let's jump over to Escape from Pompeii. Now, what's wrong with Escape from Pompeii? Well, the fire wasn't working. Not all of it. A little bit of the fire worked. A little bit in the first room. And I was like, this isn't right. And I watched a vlog from someone in June where none of the fire was working. So for those of you who don't know, I think it might have been 2019. It might have been more recent than that. The ride caught on fire. Now, how it caught on fire, I don't remember exactly. But the roof caught on fire. The fire department had to come and get it washed out. And it was only out for like a couple weeks and then it reopened. It wasn't a big thing. But there's something in there that I'm assuming they can't run the effects. But when I was in there, well, let me even say this. For those of you who've been riding Escape from Pompeii for years and years like me, notice there's been some effects that have been missing. Like the big fire explosion around the statue of the dude sitting down. That hasn't been there in years. It just kind of goes up in flames. But it used to be like this massive engulfment of flames that it would go into. You don't get that. But I noticed when I rode last time, there was no fire in the ceiling. And the fire that kind of went alongside of you in the second room was just kind of weak. And I was just like, come on, man. And to me, I feel like when I'm at Busch Gardens, I'm like representing the whole team, the home team. I'm like, hey, this is my park. I represent, and I want everyone else with me because you don't know who else is riding with you. It could be their first time at Busch Gardens. Could be the only time in their life to get to go to Busch Gardens. And when the ride is not at its peak performance, it almost feel bad. I'm like, dang, they just don't know what it was like to ride it when it was peak. So I don't know exactly why. I don't know if it's a safety thing. I don't know what exactly it is around Pompeii. They need to fix the fire effects because that's the shtick around the whole ride. Other than that, it's just a water raft ride, which is nice, and it looks pretty, and the soundtrack is phenomenal. Oh, I love the soundtrack inside. But they got to fix the on-ride effects because they used to use Pompeii in almost every bit of promo that they did for the park, and if you notice, you really don't see it in much promo for the park anymore. But now, let's talk about another ride, Loch Ness Monster, and you're like, there's on-ride effects on Loch Ness Monster? There used to be. So when the ride opened and they did it for the 40th anniversary, you used to be able to see the Loch Ness Monster like a little LED light up inside the helix, inside the cave where you go through the helixes. You also would hear the monster roaring, and there used to be a fog effect that would come out of the tunnel. Well, I can tell you why the fog doesn't come out. Someone had a reaction to the fog, sued Busch Gardens, so Busch Gardens did away with it. And here's my thing, especially after going to Disney and Universal where there's so much fog effects on coasters and yes, coasters, like the whole coaster, yeah. And other rides, you can have that. Busch Gardens need to get rid of it. What I say is what all rides are good at doing now, especially if you're on Tempesto, if you heard about the whole feet gate thing, they emphasize keep your feet in the car at all times. It's no longer just your head, your arms, and your legs. Your feet. The amount of times I counted that they said feet in the monologue before you go off, a lot. You can just have a disclaimer saying there are fog effects on this ride. If you are susceptible to those effects, you probably shouldn't ride the ride. To me, that's all you got to do. And that's all they should have done. But they went the extra mile and just got rid of it. I think with the Loch Ness Monster and the whole idea of it being murky waters and it kind of hiding and you're kind of going into its cave, it would work great to have the fog effects. I've never ridden it with the fog effects. The only effect I think I've ever seen is it might be like the Mandela effect, but I feel like I remember seeing the LED light up one time in my life, and I've heard the roar a couple times. And it doesn't sound amazing, but it's something. Because all you get in there is like for Bolton now, it's darkness. It's darkness with me just screaming as you're going through the helixes on the inside. This is not so much I need to fix it because it was never really a stable thing to begin with, but I think it'd be a cool thing to bring back. Like, bring back the Loch Ness Monster effects. Come on. It's right there. And last but not least, the ride I want to talk about is Dark Coaster. Again, I want to tie back into pandemic budgeting. I think the budget kind of hindered them a little bit. Also, they had to rebuild a lot of the inside of the building, which definitely costs a whole lot of money to renovate the inside. But the showroom is, in my opinion, the more important room than the structural of everything else because they kind of got away with using wood around the station because it has been taken over by a paranormal team, which was really smart. And I respect them for that. But the on-ride effects, I hate seeing the outline of the structures that they're on. Now the ghoul spirits, they're fine. They're there. You can tell they're fake. They don't move. They light up a little bit, which I think they should at least move. Make them a little bit of an animatronic. Take a little note out of Disney and Universal's book and just bring an animatronic. Doesn't have to be much, just a little bit. And then when it comes to the storm clouds, they look more like rocks than storm clouds. And then the screen effects, which I love that they're trying to get into screen effects, because if you've been to Disney and Universal, they kind of set the gold standard. That's why I keep referring to them. But they use them very well for the most part. Some of the screen animatronics, not great. I like the effect with Ludwig like coming to eat at you and all that. I just think that they should light it better. I don't think the screen effect's bad, and I don't really mind seeing the outline. It's just the fact that I can see the entire showroom when you're in there. When you ride rides like Space Mountain or Cosmic Rewind, they do a good job at darkening the room so you can't see. And it doesn't take much. Coming from someone who worked on a film set and it has a little bit of experience with gaffing and lighting, Duvidine does wonders. It's this black cloth that you can put over anything and it will hide so much. Or get like, if you've been on a film set, you know what I'm talking about, a floppy. Take a floppy and get like the gigantic floppies, multiple of them, and just put them wherever the lights are and block them out so when you're not around that section of the ride, you don't see it. It's very simple stuff that they could do to just darken the room. The room needs to be darkened. You're seeing way too much in there. You're seeing the entire track. You're seeing effects from when you got on the ride, from when the ride started to where the ride's at its end. And that's what I think they need to look at to improve, is how much you're seeing inside the building. The beautiful thing about Dark Coaster is I think it opens up the possibility, because it's another family coaster where families year-round can take their kids to go ride. I think this is what for Bolton needed, because this, I think, will give Bolton the opportunity to shut down for a few months to get the maintenance that it needs very badly to operate at such a high level, which we know Bolton can. Bolton is like a peak coaster, and it's just, like I said, when you know how they run in their peak performance and then you see them not run it, it makes you feel bad for the other people riding that don't get to go to Busch Gardens all the time because they're not getting the full experience. And my worst fear is that people's opinion gets hindered because of their personal experience. And they're like, that ride just wasn't great. It was just a lot of darkness. I'm like, it's not supposed to be. And I'm not going to talk about defunct on-ride effects. So we could talk about Battle for Ire, Dark Castle, all these rides. I'm going to save those for different videos because more content. But yeah, I just want to go in this video, and like I said, there's simple ways I think these can get fixed, and I think these need to get done. I think 3 out of the 4 need to get addressed. Loch Ness Monster is just wishful thinking for me. I think they're doing everything they can to keep the ride alive itself. I don't think they're going to try to add on to it. But you never know. Like I said, the 50th is coming. There's no telling what they're going to do for the 50th. SeaWorld probably will go all out. So you never know. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've had any rough experiences on Busch Gardens rides when it comes to the in-ride effects. But one ride that doesn't struggle with its on-ride effects, La Scoot. They fixed that thing and it's beautiful. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe if you hadn't already. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed. Make sure to hit that bell button down below so you're notified every single time I put a brand new video to the channel. Make sure to check out all the links below for all the awesome projects that I'm working on. Thank you guys. Busch Gardens videos. I hope you guys are enjoying this new brand of content that I'm doing. It's going to come out more steadily, I hope. And yeah, let's get the ball rolling in this new studio. A lot more videos on the way. My name is Will Morrison. I'm out. Peace.